MK Asante Jr., things started to go downhill after his big brother was put behind bars. He was kicked out of his private school, landing him in 2 different public schools where he still continued to get into trouble by being disruptive and fighting. But eventually, with a little encouragement, Asante managed to find his calling.
I had a teacher at that school. That school was called Fells. And Miss Levin she was special. She saw something in me. And she was like, one day she said after class, and I had teachers before that who told me things like, you're not going to make it, you're not going to be anything, da-da-da-da-da, that kind of thing. Miss Levin tells me, you're special, but you need to get out of this environment. And so I was just like, yeah, whatever, She got in contact with my mom, and they figured out a way to get me expelled. So I ended up getting asked to leave this school that I was at and going to this new school called Krefeld. It's an alternative school. Kids are having trouble with other places. This is really different. And I resisted and I rejected at first. And then I take this creative writing class. And I don't want to be in it necessarily, but it's just part of the curriculum, I guess. So I'm in this class, and the teacher, Deb Nangle, and she doesn't even know how much she had an impact. I mean, this changed my life. She puts blank pieces of paper in front of all of us. It's like the first day of class. And she's like, okay, class, write. And so I'm like, what do you want me to write about? And she's like, write anything you want. Anything I want. See, up until that point, every class that I've ever had in school, every educational experience ever has been about following orders, being an obedient worker, obedient student, just regurgitating stuff, No
one's ever actively tried to engage you.
Yeah. So I said, I can write anything I want. She said, yeah, anything you want. So I tested her first. I think I wrote a couple of curse words just to see if she was serious about this. And she looked at it and she said, good. So I'm like, what? This is crazy. So I take the pen and my hands start shaking because I get overwhelmed with this feeling of, what am I going to write? And so that moment changed my life. And I've always been thankful for her as a teacher and other teachers as well who saw something in me and didn't let me fail, didn't let me fall through the cracks, And that moment changed my life.
When did you realize that this is it? You were going to be a creative being, an artist, a writer, and you evolved and you became a filmmaker. When did you know?
I would say it was that same year. That same year that I took the creative writing, that same semester even, that changed because there were so many other things going on as well. I had got arrested. I had a very close friend of mine, little Chris, get murdered to gun violence in Philadelphia. My brother was incarcerated. I mean, people were dying. I felt like I had an obligation to write about those things, but to write about them in a way that was inspiring and empowering so that other people wouldn't go there. So around 16, life completely changed for me. I began to write. I began to really kind of tap into the man that I wanted to be.
At just 20 years old, Asante published his first book, a collection of poems called Like Water Running Off My Back. Tell me about your first book and how you came to publish that.
So I started writing things like 2 sets of notes, and I was also doing a lot of performing of poetry in like the Philadelphia spoken word scene at the time. So I was in Philly basically every weekend, performing at all the spots on South Street and kind of getting a name that way. And eventually I had enough pieces where I thought, man, this is really a narrative. This is a voice. This is a journey. This is a collection, a story. And so I said, I want to do something with this. And so I submitted some of the work for a contest, a writing contest that was sponsored by the Academy of American Poets. And I won. But this was the first time I had won anything academic or literary, and it felt really good. And so I used that momentum to approach a publisher, a smaller publisher. I gave them my collection, and they came to a reading, and they offered me a book deal for my work. And so that was the beginning of everything, really.
Asante followed up his debut with Beautiful and Ugly 2 in 2005, and then It's Bigger Than Hip Hop in 2008.
Oh, it's crazy, the evolution, because, the other day someone asked me, what's your best book that and I said, the next one. I mean, you grow so much from each book to, or each project. And so It's Bigger Than Hip Hop was the transformation. It was when I fully understood how to transform an observation into an obligation. So the observation was, there's no book that uses hip-hop culture as a vehicle to look at the social political issues that affect young people, not just in America, but in Harare, in Italy, in London, in Colombia, in, everywhere, in Jamaica. There's no book that really does that. And there's no book that does that in a way that's accessible, in a way in which you can be in prison and read it, you can be in school and read it, you can be on the streets and read it, you can be in college and read it. Just feel like that book is the book that I needed when I was 16 or 15 or 14 or 13 or just going through that period. And, I'm hoping, and that's kind of that was my idea when I was writing it is, I want this book to kind of help young people the way books help me.
Just on the other side of the break, Asante finds a way to spread the creative word.